I'm Victoria. Standing in the middle of my living room, surrounded by the laughter and joy of my nephew's 11th birthday party, I can't help but reflect on the long and arduous journey that led me here. It was a path filled with betrayal, heartbreak, and finally, the courage to stand up for myself. It all started on a fateful evening at the opulent Regency Hotel. The valet barely glanced at me as he took my keys. Maybe it was my simple sedan or the way I clung to the gift as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Either way, I felt out of place, like an outsider in a world I once thought was mine. The entrance to the grand ballroom was a sight to behold, twinkling with fairy lights. Guests in designer suits and sequined dresses swept past me, their laughter and chatter filling the air. I stood at the edge, watching a woman in diamond-encrusted heels carry a little boy in a monogrammed silk suit. My nephew, Leo, loved superheroes, not monograms. I adjusted the bow on the wrapped box in my hands, a state-of-the-art remote-controlled drone, a gift I'd spent weeks researching and months saving for. As I stepped forward, a security guard blocked my path. "Sorry, ma'am, private event, family only." I stammered, "I'm family. My name is Victoria. This is my nephew Leo's birthday party." He hesitated, checked his clipboard, and said, "You're not on the list." That's when I saw her, my sister, Isabella. She emerged from the archway like a vision in a floor-length, midnight blue gown that probably cost more than my car. Her smile was cold and fake. "Victoria," she said, tilting her head as if she'd just remembered I existed. "What are you doing here?" I blinked. "I'm here for Leo, his birthday." Isabella's smile didn't waver. "Didn't Mom tell you? We decided to keep it small this year, just immediate family." Behind her, a live band played a soft, elegant tune. Waiters in white jackets carried trays of champagne. The room was filled with at least 200 guests. "Small?" I echoed. She touched my arm patronizingly. "You understand, right?" I didn't, but I nodded anyway, like I always did. I looked past her into the ballroom and saw my parents, Richard and Amelia, laughing and mingling near the cake table. I saw the world I thought I belonged to, and then I turned around and walked back to the parking lot, the gift still in my hands. I sat in my car for a long time, watching the hotel's lights blur through the windshield. Memories of the past came flooding back. 5 years ago, when my parents wanted to downsize, I co-signed their new mortgage. Mom said they didn't want to burden Isabella, who was still trying to establish her fashion business. I didn't question it, even though Isabella seemed to be taking expensive trips to Paris and Milan. Later, I paid off Isabella's remaining business loans. It was $25,000, but I thought it was the right thing to do. Mom thanked me, saying, "You're such a blessing, Victoria. Isabella just needs a little more time to get on her feet." Then came Leo's summer camp. Dad promised it was just until Isabella's business payment came through. But that payment never arrived, and I ended up paying for the camp for 3 consecutive years. I used to think that being silent and generous made me a good family member. But that night at the hotel, I realized that I'd been taken for granted. I unlocked my phone and called my financial advisor, Mark. "Mark, I need you to freeze every account tied to my named joint, co-signed, authorized, everything." He paused, then asked, "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure," I replied. After the call, I looked back at the hotel one last time. The party was still in full swing, but something inside me had changed. I placed the untouched gift on the passenger seat and waited, not knowing what the future held, but determined not to let this go. In the following weeks, I noticed a change in Leo's behavior. Our regular movie nights and park visits started getting cancelled. "Leo has a soccer game," Isabella would say. "He's got a school project, or he's just too tired." At first, I believed her. I didn't want to be the pushy aunt. But after the party, a nagging feeling grew inside me. I logged into my online banking portal and started checking my linked accounts. What I found made my blood boil. There were 3 credit cards I'd forgotten about, cards I'd opened years ago to help Isabella build her business credit. All were active and had been recently used. One had a $5,000 charge from a high-end fashion boutique in New York. Another showed monthly payments to a luxury spa. The third had large purchases from a high-end electronics store. Then, I discovered a personal loan of $40,000, opened 2 years ago with my name as a co-signer. I had no recollection of this, no alerts, no requests. I remembered the times Isabella had offered to help me with paperwork, like when she took over my bill-paying system. My kindness had been exploited, my trust betrayed. I picked up my phone and called my lawyer, Sarah. By morning, I had 10 missed calls, 7 from Isabella, 2 from Mom, and 1 from an unknown number. I let them all go to voicemail. When my phone rang again, it was Isabella. "What the hell is wrong with you? You've embarrassed me in front of everyone." My cards were declined, and the caterer threatened to call the cops. I kept my voice calm. "Sounds like it was quite a party." She snapped, "This was Leo's day, and you ruined it." I replied, "I wasn't invited. But I was apparently good enough to pay for it." She went silent for a moment, then said, "You've always been so dramatic. You're going to destroy this family over money." I said calmly, "You already destroyed it when you started using me as a bank." I told her I had the bank records, the dates, the signatures. She didn't deny it. I reached for the folder I'd been compiling, filled with statements, screenshots, and emails. I knew it was time to take action. I called Sarah again. "Sarah, I need your help. There's over $70,000 in unauthorized debt, and I want it back." She said, "Come in tomorrow. Bring everything." The next day, Sarah looked through the folders. "She's good," she said, "but not good enough. The forged signatures don't match your legal ones." She laid out a plan, a demand letter for full restitution, including principal, interest, and legal fees, and the termination of all joint or co-signed financial ties. She also mentioned something else, visitation rights for Leo. I exhaled slowly. "That's all I want." Sarah looked me in the eye. "It's not all you want, but it's a start." Later that evening, I got a call from Dad. "Your mother's upset. She thinks you're being unfair. You could have just talked to Isabella." I said, "I did talk to her, and she lied." He was silent for a long time, then said, "Maybe you should just let it go." I didn't flinch. "Let it go like she let go of my trust and my money?" "No, Dad. You had your chance to fix this." The line went dead. I decided to go to my parents' house. The house looked different, more like a stranger's place. I rang the doorbell. Isabella opened the door with a fake smile. "Well, if it isn't the detective." I stepped inside without a word. My parents were sitting in the living room. Mom offered a weak smile, and Dad wouldn't look at me. Isabella folded her arms. "You didn't need to do all this. We could have talked." I said, "We tried talking, and you lied." So I brought evidence. I laid the folder on the coffee table, showing the forged authorization forms and the credit card statements. Isabella scoffed. "You act like a martyr. You gave that money willingly." I met her eyes. "I gave it because I thought I was helping my family. You turned it into a way to live a luxurious life at my expense." Dad finally looked up. "Isabella, did you really use her credit?" Isabella didn't answer. Mom reached for her hand, but she pulled away. I took a deep breath. "You can call me foolish, but today, I'm done. You've ruined this family, and I'm taking back what's mine." I turned to leave. No one stopped me. On my way out, I saw the new family photo on the wall. My face wasn't in it. I hadn't noticed before, but now it was like a punch in the gut. Isabella's lawyer tried to fight back, claiming emotional distress and character defamation. But Sarah was prepared. She presented the evidence of financial fraud, identity theft, and potential elder abuse. The other side went silent. By the end of the week, the judge issued an order freezing all of Isabella's remaining lines of credit. The court also requested a full financial assessment of Isabella's household to evaluate Leo's well-being. What Isabella submitted were bills for designer clothes, expensive vacations, and a luxury car lease. There was not a single receipt for Leo's school supplies or basic needs. 3 days later, I got a call from the court-appointed evaluator. Temporary custody of Leo would be transferred to me until further review. Leo arrived at my door with a small backpack and big, scared eyes. He didn't say a word. He just walked in, kicked off his shoes, and went straight to the fridge, just like he used to. That evening, my parents came over to object. "This is going too far," Mom said. "Isabella is his mother." I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, keeping Leo out of earshot. "I'm protecting Leo from someone who only cares about herself," I said quietly. Mom asked, "You think you're better than us now?" I replied, "No, I just finally see the difference between being there for your family and being used." They didn't say anything and walked away. I looked back through the window and saw Leo on the couch, curled up with his favorite superhero blanket. He looked safe, and I knew I'd done the right thing. We planned a simple birthday party for Leo. We set up 2 folding tables, a rented canopy, and a cooler full of soda. Sarah dropped off balloons, and my neighbor brought extra chairs. There were no fancy caterers or champagne fountains, just homemade pizza and a cake from the local bakery. The kids had a great time, chasing each other in the yard, their faces sticky with frosting. When Leo opened his gift, his eyes lit up. "The blue one?" he asked, holding up the drone. "You remembered?" "Of course I did," I said. He threw his arms around me. "This is the best birthday ever." Later, while cleaning up, I found an envelope in the gift bag. It was a check from Isabella, signed with a note saying it was for the party. I stood there for a moment, then slipped the check back into the envelope and mailed it back without a note. This wasn't about the money or proving anything. It was about Leo and building a new, honest relationship. On a rainy Saturday morning, Sarah hosted a small gathering in her office. There were 4 of us, me, Ruth, who had been drained by her son's failed business, and Elena, who had co-signed for her niece's wedding and ended up with debt. We shared our stories, stitching together the broken pieces of our lives. Ruth said, "I thought if I gave enough, they'd finally see me as more than just a bank." I nodded, knowing exactly how she felt. Elena added, "It wasn't until I stopped giving that they realized what they were doing." We weren't bitter or broken. We were just done being invisible. Leo now comes to my place every other weekend. He brings his favorite comics and leaves his toys all over the place. We bake cookies, play board games, and talk about his day at school. He rarely mentions his mother. Isabella moved to California. She filed one last complaint, which the court quickly dismissed. Every few months, I hear a vague update: new job, new apartment, still angry. But I don't let it bother me. Today, as I sit in my yard, barefoot and sipping tea, watching Leo run around with his friends, I know that we're not rebuilding the old family. We're creating something new, something better. It's not perfect, but it's built on truth and love. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm finally living my own life, with the boundaries I should have set long ago.